It's your boy Luke, back for another course breakdown video. What we're going to do here is go completely through everything you need to know this week for Port Royal Golf Course, whether you're on the gambling side, DFS side, or just a golf fan in general. We're going to tell you exactly how we expect it to play, both in terms of course fit, weather, and of course players we're looking to target. So without further delay, let's hop right into the course here for this week's Bermuda Championship. We're going to have 156 golfers teeing it up this week with a normal top 65 in ties cut line, playing at a golf course which I already mentioned, Port Royal Golf Course, which is extremely beautiful, one of the more scenic golf courses that we'll see pretty much all year. This is a Robert Trent Jones design. It's a par 71, which makes it a little bit atypical. We got the 3 par 5s, normal allotment of par 4s and 3s. In terms of yardage, one of the shorter tracks that these tour players will see, it's 6,828 yards, very comparable to something like a Pebble Beach. It was only 12 yards longer than it. So as the name would suggest, this is in Bermuda, and as a result, we have Bermuda grass everywhere, in the fairways, in the rough, on the greens, exactly what we would expect for this island. In terms of our green size, average size greens, right about 6,000 square foot per green on average, which is slightly more than the tour average. One thing of note with these greens is that they're going to be extremely receptive. This is a true resort style golf course that is designed for players like you and me, high handicap players that aren't applying tons of spin to golf balls to keep them from going off greens. So you're going to have very soft greens. Balls are going to spin a ton. And that's why we've seen the birdie fest that we have here. Even when we had a ton of wind like we did last year in 2020, the winning score got to 15 under par. So definitely a very scoreable, maybe even a little bit more scoreable than a course like Pebble Beach. That's infamously difficult when it gets windy. In terms of water, there's plenty of water in play. Almost on every single hole, we either have it in play off the tee or into greens, which is definitely the main defense of this golf course, along with the wind, which I've already mentioned. From time to time, we have very strong prevailing winds that end up coming into play because this is an island course. When that tends to happen, you're looking at an average score, particularly for the people in contention, right around 3-4 under par, as opposed to when there's no wind at all, you're looking at something like 6, 7, maybe even 8 under par. When there's no wind, it's very possible for somebody to put up in a 10 or an 11 under round here. When the wind kicks up, you're looking at people scoring at their very best at maybe 7 or 8 over par. So something that we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on. As of right now, the wind looks like it's picking up one day, calming down the next. So we're going to have to wait a little bit closer to the lock on Wednesday or maybe even Thursday morning to see how this is going to play. But as of right now, expecting it to be slightly windy. I'm expecting a winning score a little bit in the middle of what we've seen so far. I mean, in 2020, we had it at 15 under par. Brendan Todd at 24 under par the year before. I'm expecting something closer to the 18, 19 under par mark. I mean, wind's going to come into play some days. On other days, it's going to be very easy to score, so keep that in mind. In terms of some of the key stats that we're looking at for this week, I'm focusing a little bit less on stats like around the green because we have some of these large greens that also are going to be relatively receptive. We're going to see people hit a little bit more greens than we're used to seeing from week to week on the PGA Tour. So as a result, not as many people having to get up and down. Driving distance is also something that I'm not taking a very long look at. This is obviously one of the shorter tracks on the PGA Tour, so clubbing down off the tee is going to be extremely common, especially to avoid some of the water that comes into play. And of course, we're not really looking at bogey avoidance. This is going to be a relatively easy golf course. Even when the wind kicks up, you're still looking at these guys shooting well under par. It's not going to be like something we saw at Narashino where when the wind kicks up, you're looking at an average score of 3 or 4 over par. Still going to be a relatively birdie fest here. In terms of stats that I am looking at, for our number one key stat this week, we have driving accuracy, and it definitely makes sense at this type of track. It's a shorter track. There's plenty of hazards in play off the tee, so the guys that can keep it in play are going to thrive. It's no surprise we've seen some of the more accurate players on tour win this event. I mean, just think of Brendan Todd when he won it back in 2019, even Brian Gay, people that aren't necessarily known for their distance, more their accuracy off the tee. And again, a lot of it comes down to just missing these penalty areas. There's plenty that come into play. Also, when you're in the fairway here, it's very easy to be precise into these greens. They still are relatively large, but you still have to put yourself in the right position to score. Again, you're looking at a winning score close to 18, maybe even 20 under par. So as a result, I'm looking for guys that can keep the ball in play, not only to keep themselves out of trouble, but to keep themselves in scoring positions. I'm also looking at birdie or better percentage, that being my number 2 key stat for this week. Because we're expecting a birdie fest, I want guys that are going to be extremely aggressive and going for a lot of these greens. On top of this being a place that's been relatively easy in the past, this course has given up the most eagles of any course on the PGA Tour. So that's been for the last 2 years. It's held that mark. This is a golf course where the par 5s are extremely gettable into. You also have a few gettable par 4s. So for me, looking at birdie or better percentage, I'm looking for some of those aggressive players that tend to take advantage of easier holes. But at number 3, we have shots gained approach, which is always going to be a part of my analysis here on the channel. It is the bread and butter of golf analysis, the most consistent stat from week to week. Also the most correlated stat to success relatively at any golf course. Doesn't matter where you are. You could be at long golf courses. You could be at a short track like this. You could be at unique courses like the Masters, Augusta National, that type of thing. Approach play is always going to be king. So for me, definitely something that we're looking at, especially at a golf course where we don't have a ton of data, or really any data to speak of, because we don't have the shots gained numbers here. For me, again, at number 3, it's not anything that I'm using more than I would in most weeks. It's already a prominent part of my analysis week in and week out, but definitely wanted to mention it here as it's definitely playing a huge factor. For me, a couple other stats that I'm looking at for putting, I'm obviously prioritizing the guys who excel on Bermuda grass. Here, you're dealing with pure Bermuda grass greens. I mean, hell, we're in Bermuda where the grass even comes from. And for me, you're looking for guys that can make a ton of putts. I mean, the winning score getting close to 20 under par. You definitely need people that are going to be on with their putting. We're looking at eagle rate here. So like I mentioned, the most eagles of any course is on tour. So it's not really always coming on the par 5s either. Some of that is on par 4s. So taking a look at eagles in general is not a bad idea. I'm also looking for players who excel in the wind, which is a factor that we've already outlined here earlier in the video. When the wind kicks up, you're still looking at a relatively easy golf course, but the players that are good in wind that have lower ball flights are definitely going to have an advantage. So for me, we don't really know the wind forecast as of right now, but if it were the same, if this were Wednesday night and we still weren't sure about the wind forecast, I would definitely still bake it into play because it would have such a huge impact here. In terms of some comparison courses, my first comparison course is the course we're playing next week. That is El Camaleon for the Mayaková Classic. Both are par 71s, both are short golf courses, both are in tropical, windy climates. They're essentially carbon copies of each other. Obviously different designers, everything like that, but very similar in terms of a comparison. You also have Monterey Peninsula, which is one of the Pebble Beach courses that they play for the first 2 days. Par 71, relatively short. Also has tons of slope in the fairways. I like that as a comparison course. La Quinta Country Club, also a short par 70. I like that as a comparison. You can even go to Torrey Pines or Pebble Beach, the main golf courses there. They're playing on Saturday, Sunday, that kind of thing. Both of those venues are relatively short. They have a lot of undulation in the fairways. And overall, you get a lot of similar looks to what you'll see this week here at Port Royal. This is all I've got for this week's course preview. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what you think the winning score is going to be. Personally, I've got it at 19 under par. That's where I'm going to set my flag at. But let me know if you've got it as more of a birdie fest, something closer to 23, 24 under par, or maybe something that's a little bit closer to 15, 14 under par like we saw back in 2020. So let me know in the comments what you've got. As always, would love to get some debate going down there. As always, also appreciate your support here on the channel. You guys stopping by and enjoying the content. If you guys haven't already liked the video, if you haven't already gotten a chance to subscribe to the channel, I highly recommend you guys go ahead and do so. By doing that, you guys won't miss any of the content that I post, whether it's PGA Tour content. We're going to have lots of DFS stuff coming out later in the week for Draftkings, also for NFL, for Showdown, for the main slate on Draftkings over there. And more content to come in the future, whether it's for NBA, more golf course content where I'm actually going to try and get on some of these golf courses and play them for you guys, break them down that way. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming on to the channel, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of that. And again, appreciate your support. And until next time, later on today, we are going to have my Draftkings picks for this Bermuda Championship coming out. So if you're playing on that side of things, especially on DFS, make sure to give that a watch. But until then, peace.